Hey everyone and welcome back. So in today's video we'll be discussing about the ACL rules in Consul. Now the ACL system in Consul is capability based, which relies on tokens that are associated with the policies to determine the fine-grained rules that can be applied. So at a high level overview, do note that there are two primary components of the ACL system here. One is the ACL policies and second is the ACL tokens. So if you have worked with HashiCorp Vault, this system is very similar to that. So let's quickly understand that. So what happens is you have a token and this token in turn is associated with a specific policy. So in here the policy is developer ACL policy, and the developer ACL policy in turn is associated with certain rule. So you have allow write access to front end service, allow read access to KV store and so on. So these are the rule. So there are two rules associated with the developer ACL policy, and this developer ACL policy in turn is associated with the token 1. So when you use the token 1, you will be able to go ahead and implement all the capabilities that are part of this specific rule that is associated with the policy. So just to revise, you have the tokens. Token is associated with a specific policy. Policy in turn contains multiple rules. So let's quickly discuss in detail about what rules are. So rules are composed of resource, a segment and a policy disposition. So again, this is a very technical term that you will see within the documentation. So let's quickly understand it in a simple way. So you have a resource. So there can be various resources, like you have a resource of service, you have a resource of key value and so on. Then you have a segment. So this again, it does not apply everywhere, but it applies for certain resources. For example, key value. And then you have a policy. So this can be better explained with this example, where under the resource you have a key underscore prefix that is associated with a key value store. Then under the segment you have the path of mobiles, and under the policy you have write. So just by reading this, it is very easy to understand that the token that is associated with this will have the write access under the path of mobile of the key value store in Consul. So when you discuss about the action of the rule, so for example here the policy had the action of write. So there can be various other actions as well. So you have action of read, you have action of write, you have action of deny, and you also have a action of list that can be used over here. So with this, let's do one thing. Let's directly jump into practical so that this specific concept can be better understood. So I am within the Consul GUI. First, let's go ahead and log in. So let's quickly get our token. I'll paste it over here and we'll log in. So the primary important tab for today's video is associated with the access control over here. Now here you will see that there are two tokens that are created. One is the anonymous token, which by default does not really have any privilege. And second is the bootstrap token, which has a global management related privilege. So this is basically the unrestricted access token. So let's assume that you have a developer within your organization and that developer wants to store some data within the key value. So you will not be giving this bootstrap token to the developer. You will be giving a specific token that is designed based on the use case of the developer. So you will have to create a new token according to him. Now, as we're discussing, token in turn are associated with a specific policy. So within the GUI, you see you have a specific tab for policies. And one policy that is associated is the global management policy over here. So this is associated with the global management token. So in today's video, let's go ahead and take a simple use case based on key value store based access. So first, let's go ahead and create a token. And within the description, I'll say this token is for developer. I'll go ahead and save it. And that's about it. That's the only thing that is required to create a token. So now if you see here, you have one token over here. If I'll click over here, within the token, if you quickly show it, this is the token that can be used here. So let's copy this up and I'll connect to Consul from a Ignito mode. So now let's go ahead and do a login. I'll use the token that we have just created and we have logged in. So as of now, here you see that you get a message which states that there don't seem to be any registered service, or you may not have access to view the service. Same goes with the notes. Here you see that you are not able to see anything over here. Even if you go to ACL, you are getting unauthorized. On the contrary, if you quickly go to the services, you see you are able to see the services. However, when you use our token over here, that token does not really have any access over here. So for today's video, let's go ahead and create some data under the key value. So let's quickly do a create. I'll say mobiles, let's say Motorola, and within the value, let's say hello Moto. I'll go ahead and save it. Now within the Ignito mode, if you go to key value and if I quickly refresh over here, again, you see you are not able to see any data over here. So for today's video, we'll look into how we can go ahead and create a ACL rule that allows access to this specific path. So let's try it out. So within the ACL, as we are seeing that the token creation is very simple, but this token should also have an associated policy. So let's go ahead and go to policy. Let's create a new policy and let's call it as demo KV policy. So similar to this specific rule that we were exploring, let me go ahead and add it as part of the rules section. Now again, I already have this within our document so that you can also go ahead and refer it easily. So from here, you have a key prefix on the mobiles and the policy is read. So let's go ahead and do a save. So at this stage, this policy is created. So as we were discussing, this developer ACL policy is created, but this policy also needs to be associated with a token. So the step 2 in this case is to go ahead and open a token, and within the policy, let me go ahead and apply the demo KV policy and I'll do a save. So now if I quickly do a refresh, you see that we are able to see mobiles, and under mobile you have Motorola, and under Motorola you have Hello Moto. So I hope at a high level overview you understood the basics of token, policies and rules. So let's do few interesting things. Now, as of now, we had looked into the action of read, but you also have one more interesting action of deny, which does not allow resource to be read or modified. So let's do few interesting things here. So under the key value under mobiles, let's also create one more. Let's call it as Samsung, and within the value, let's say hello Samsung. I'll go ahead and I'll save it. So within our Ignito mode, let's go back to key value. Let's go to mobile. So as of now, you're able to see both Motorola and Samsung and also its associated data. So now there can be a requirement where the developer should be able to access the contents of Motorola, but he should not be able to access anything under Samsung. So how can we deal with that? Let's quickly explore. So I'll go to ACL, we'll go to policies. Let's open up our policy, and this time let me just go ahead and copy the first rule, and within mobiles I'll say Samsung, and the policy action here would be deny. So let's go ahead and save it. So let's go back to key value. If I open up mobiles, you are only able to see Motorola. You will not be able to see Samsung now. So do note that a policy can contain multiple rules, and in turn, depending upon the action that you have specified in the rule, the final action for a specific token will be calculated accordingly. Great. So few more interesting thing I just wanted to show you. So let's go ahead and create one more key. Let's call it as max memory, and I'll say 512 MB over here. So under the Ignito mode, yet again, if I go to key value, you are not able to see the max memory key. So what if there is a requirement where the developer should be able to read all the contents, be it under mobiles, be it outside of mobiles, or any other part within the key value? So in order to do that, you can go ahead and also create a wildcard like policy. So let's go ahead and remove this, and instead of mobiles, you can just specify a empty string here. So it can be something similar to this. The policy is read. Let's do a save. So let's quickly go ahead and refresh the page. So now you are able to see mobile, both Motorola, Samsung, as well as you are able to see the contents of max memory. So this is something like a wildcard that can also be used. Now, one more important thing before we conclude the video is the scope of ACL rules. So following resources within the console are available for constructing the rules. So you can go ahead and construct a rule based on ACLs, agent, event. You have the key value store. You can create rules based on keyring, node, operator, etc. And the etc. here includes query, service and session. So depending upon the resource that you want, you can go ahead and create the appropriate ACL rules accordingly. So before we conclude, let me also show you the documentation associated with the ACL rules. I'll also paste the link in our document for the same. So if you look into this specific ACL rules, let's go a bit down. You have various rules here depending upon the resources. So you have a agent based rules, you have a event rules, you have a key value related rules and so on. So if you go a bit down, you have a rules related to node, operator, prepared, query rules and so on. So depending upon what is the resource that you want to target in console, you can go ahead and apply the rule accordingly. Now one more important part that you need to know is that depending upon the rule, so for example node rule, so in case of node rule, this specific resource section changes. So here you have a node prefix. Now if you go a bit up, specifically for key value, you can make use of key prefix and so on. So just by looking into this, like event prefix, so just by looking into the name, you can quickly identify that this is the one associated with the events and so on. So that's the high level overview about the ACL rules in Consul.